Assalamu alaikum. This is the course of Advanced Phonology and I am Afia Mahmood. In our previous lecture, we had been discussing phoneme, allophone and minimal pairs. Before moving on, let's slightly revise these concepts because these are linked to the next topics. Phoneme, we said that it's the smallest meaningful unit of human speech sounds. For example, English has 44 phonemes, 20 vowel phonemes and 24 consonant phonemes. And allophone is different phonetic realization of different pronunciation of the same phoneme. For example, per in English will be pronounced with aspiration if it is in the beginning of a syllable, and it will lose its aspiration when it is coming at the end of the word, like if we say the word tap. Now in this word, per is not aspirated anymore. Then we had slightly discussed minimal pairs. We will look at these today again because this concept is linked to the next concepts that we have to discuss today. The next concepts are phonemic or contrastive distribution, free variation, phonetic or complementary distribution, and phonemic inventory of Urdu and Punjabi language. We will look at each of these in detail. Now, first of all, I have this question for you, that how to find phonemes of a language. That is it simple? Is it so simple that you will just get a list of phonemes of a language and you will be able to learn that particular language? If you have to analyze a language and you don't know anything about it, how are you going to find out its phonemes? As a linguist, how are you going to find out the phonemes of a particular language? So, and plus you don't know anything about that language, how will you manage? Here is an example for you as well. So in English, if we have the sound per, which is only one phoneme in English, and in Urdu we have these two phonemes per and per. Per and per are different variations of the same phoneme in English, whereas in Urdu these two are different sounds or different phonemes. Now, if an English linguist or an English native speaker wants to know whether these two are different phonemes or variation of the same phoneme, how would he do it? So, how do we know which sounds speakers categorize as the same and which sounds speakers categorize as different? That's the question when we are investigating phonemes in a language. Then, to answer this question, obviously we will have to ask the speakers, the native speakers of the language, that whether they feel the difference, whether they hear the difference between these two sounds or not. The difference means the difference in meaning. Now, this thing is actually accomplished by two methods. These two methods are called method of minimal pair and method of complementary distribution and free variation. These methods are used to find out how many phonemes are there in a language, or whether these two sounds are same in the language or are considered same phoneme in the language, or are considered two different phonemes. So we can use these methods of minimal pairs and these complementary and distribution and free variation. Now, minimal pairs. As we had said in the previous lecture as well, that minimal pairs are those words which will consist of smallest syllable possible. It can consist of one syllable, or it can in some cases consist of two syllables. But the condition is that when we are making minimal pairs, we should only replace one sound, and only that one sound should be replaced at the same position. So for example, look at these words. In pat and bat, if we have replaced the sound, we have only replaced it at the beginning. In these two words, rip and rip, if we have replaced the sound, we have only done it at the final position. So in minimal pairs, we replace a sound only at one position, and then that one sound changes the meaning of the word. If that one sound is changing the meaning of the word, it means, though obviously there are two different sounds used in the members of the pair. Then contrastive distribution, the concept of contrastive or phonemic distribution is actually linked to this concept of minimal pairs. We say that phonemically different sounds are said to be in contrast. When different phonemes appear in the same environment and give different meanings, they are said to be in contrastive distribution. Obviously, when phonemes are in contrast, we will say that they are appearing in contrastive distribution when they are appearing in minimal pairs. Now examples from English are written here. These pan, can and ban. These can be considered minimal pairs, and plus these can also be said to be, so per and cur and bur, these sounds can said to be in contrastive distribution to each other. Now here is this activity for you guys. The pairs of consonants listed below are separate phonemes in English. You have to provide minimal pairs showing how these sounds contrast word meanings. So, first example has been done for you. In the first example, you can see that word phoneme at word initially has been replaced, and then same phoneme has been replaced at word final position. Here you have been given phonemes in pairs. Now try to do these. While doing these, you will find out that making these pairs is not as simple as it looks like. It will really take time, and you will also find that it can really be used to teach new vocabulary items to the new learners of the language. In fact, in the books of language, where we teach language to the children, the exercises consisting of minimal pairs are given. So minimal pairs can be used both in linguistic analysis and in language teaching. So you have about 3 to 5 minutes to do this activity. Okay, Now we will move on. If you are still doing your activity, you can pause the video and complete it. Only then you should move on. Now the next concept that we have to study, this next concept is about free variation. In free variation, so in minimal pairs, each example must be a real, distinct word that native speakers can recognize as being distinct from the other word in pair. Now, this requirement then eliminates either of the following cases. Now, in minimal pairs, we had already discussed that each example must be a real example. So you have not to make words. So, for example, if if you have to make a minimal pair with fur and ver, you should not make, like if you say fat, and you must think of some other word which exists in English language starting with ver sound. So the word that you will think should not actually be a non-word. That's a requirement for minimal pairs, though it becomes sometimes difficult to meet this requirement, but this is a requirement. Now, sometimes a particular phoneme can be pronounced slightly differently without noticeable effect. And for example, final stops in English can be released or unreleased, and the voiceless ones can be accompanied by a simultaneous glottal closure, or that can be omitted. All possible pronunciations count as examples of the same word. Now what we are moving towards, we are actually moving towards the concept of free variation. We say that there are some phonemes in English or in any language which are pronounced differently, and the pronunciation is quite noticeable. It is so much noticeable that a listener who is not a native speaker of that language might think that a new phoneme has been pronounced. But no, we have to be careful at this point. We have to be careful that this particular different pronunciation is it really a phoneme or is it just a variation? So this is what we are going to see here. So now see, sometimes it may be pronounced with some aspiration like rip, and sometimes it may be pronounced with voice, it may become voiced. So see, for example, final stops in English can be released, like released means that there will be aspiration, or unreleased that there will be no aspiration and they will become devoiced, and sometimes they can be accompanied with glottal closure, or sometimes even that can be omitted as well. So it can be pronounced differently, but now this variation can be a speaker variation or can be a variation because of the context in which it was pronounced. The speaker can be in hurry, there may be a phenomena of different pronunciation. So this is one kind of free variation. Now this is just simple free variation. It is not a case of different phoneme. It is just a case of allophone, that there is different pronunciation of the same phoneme. We cannot categorize it that okay, we cannot say that a different phoneme has been produced here. Now the next concept is of that free variation is of two kinds. There is socio-linguistic implication in free variation, and there is phonemic implication in free variation. Now what is this socio-linguistic variation? Now the previous one where we had taken the example of rep, and rep where per was devoiced, and rep where it was not devoiced and it was aspirated. that was a kind of plain free variation. Now here you can see that it is sort of dialectal variation. You can see that however other kinds of free variation seem to have socio-linguistic implications. Thus we can go to New York City and ask people to say the word bad. We can hear at least the following, and you will see that people will pronounce this one word differently. They can pronounce it either like bad and bird or beard. So there may be different variation. I might not be pronouncing them the way the speakers would have been pronouncing them, but you can see from the symbols. Now you may also observe this phenomena that one word might be differently pronounced by different Pakistani speakers who are coming from different regional or geographical backgrounds. So Urdu might be spoken differently by people living in Punjab and by people living in Sindh. So there might be variation of in the pronunciation of the same word, but that will be a free variation having some socio-linguistic implication. So this is the point that you need to notice carefully. But while they all constitute instances of the same word bad, they are markers of social classes, formality levels, levels of social solidarity, and so on. So these are also not producing any new phoneme. These are just variations in phoneme. You won't say that you have created a minimal pair by creating such examples. These examples won't come in the category of minimal pairs. Now phonemic free variation or variation in phoneme. Now a second kind of free variation is much odder. It is even more odd, and even little research has been done on it. This variation in which phoneme a particular word contains. This is variation. Now we have to see in which phoneme a particular word contains. So we are going to see, we will see that the phoneme has been replaced here. Here speakers can use either of several distinctive sounds but don't seem to care very much which one they use. Now for example, thus we can say economics or economic, or vary between either or either. So you might hear these different pronunciations. Even I sometimes may pronounce either or either, and then I'll assume actually these both are correct. So now this is also an instance of free variation. So now here is a small quotation by this author. You say either, and I say either. You say neither and I say either. Either, either, neither, neither. Let's call the whole thing off. So now just about that how phoneme is being different here. This is free variation. Now sort of summary of free variation. Free variation is not associated with positioning and is rather unpredictable. It is not predictable because it can vary according to the speakers. It is free variation or random variation. This is why it is called, because it's speaker dependent. It does not affect the meaning. That's the most important thing, because it does not affect the meaning. This is why we cannot include it in the category of minimal pairs. It's person dependent, as I already said, and there are some examples that we have already discussed. Mat, as we will have release here, aspiration here, and this term will be devoiced as we had taken the example of rip and rip. So now we will move on. This one word of caution here. Consequently, instances of free variation do not count as minimal pairs. That's what I have been saying in the previous slides, and that's what you have to remember as well. So that is, even though neither is heard as sounding different from neither, it does not constitute a different word. Minimal pairs will constitute a different word. Thus, the first test of whether two sounds are distinct phonemes in a language is to find whether there are minimal pairs. Now, pairs of words with a difference in meaning attributable to a single difference in sound, which means that one meaning will be attributed to a single sound. Now, you can see one meaning is attributed here to two different sounds. So, these are not part of minimal pairs. Now, phonetic distribution. It is also a way of determining whether some sound, a variation in sound, whether it should be classified as phoneme or as an allophone, or whether it should not be classified as phoneme. Now, two sounds are in complementary distribution if they occur in different environments. The sounds that can never occur in the place of another are in complementary distribution. They are mutually exclusive because where one occurs, the other cannot. If two sounds are in complementary distribution, they are allophones of the same phoneme. And there are no minimal pairs. Now see here, we had taken this example in our last lecture as well, in our previous recording as well, when we were talking about allophones. Now stop, little and this kitten, these four are different pronunciations of the same phoneme. Now the thing is that they are occurring in different environments. See, here it is occurring at the beginning of the word, here it is occurring at the after one consonant, here it is occurring almost it's occurring before lateral l, and here it's occurring before nasal sound. So the phonetic environments are different. This is why these sounds are said to be in complementary distribution. Where one occurs, the other cannot. So, t will never be aspirated when it is at this position, or it will never be aspirated in kitten. You cannot say kitten. It will look awkward. So, these pronunciations, or these are in allophones are in complementary distribution to each other. Now next one. Now here is an example from Korean language. Now we are going to see, now we don't know Korean language. We have to see whether we are able to differentiate whether these two sounds are r. This is not pronounced r, it's slightly different from r. Now whether these two sounds, let's call it for the timing r and l, these two are in complementary distribution or in contrastive distribution. So we have to see whether these two are different phonemes or these two are different allophones. If these two are different phonemes, it means they are in contrastive distribution. If these two are different allophones, it means they are in complementary distribution. So now I have underlined these with red over here. So I'll give you few minutes, 1 or 2 minutes. Try to analyze this data and try to see what do you think, whether these two are occurring in different environments or in the same environments. So remember that if one phoneme is occurring in the same environment and changing the meaning, it will be a different phoneme. If it is occurring in different environments, it will mean that okay, the different pronunciation is because of the different surroundings, and then that will be allophone. So now here we are going to explain it now. Now carefully look at these two. This l symbol is occurring either at the end of the word, see here in these first four words, and in this last word, this l sound is occurring at the end of the word. Or in some examples, like in these two words, it is occurring before a consonant. And then this sound, which is said to be similar to this sound, is occurring in a different environment. It is occurring between the vowel sounds. See here, it's occurring between the vowel sounds. So it is also like a vowel sound or a semi-vowel. So this sound is occurring everywhere. It is occurring between vowel sound. So we can say this. Thus the distribution of the two sounds r and l is complementary. The two sounds never occur in the same place. If two sounds are occurring in the same place, as we had taken examples in the previous slides like bat and sat or bat and pat, these two are occurring in the same place. They are making changes in the meaning. If they two sounds are able to occur in the same place, it means they are different phonemes. Different surroundings will result in different adjustments. The result is that we all have a small set of adjusted sounds depending on the phonetic surroundings, and they will be in complementary distribution. Since their existence can be attributed to their particular surroundings, they will all be phonetically similar since they are adjustments to the basic phoneme or mental sounds. So we have actually one basic phoneme and some other sounds are actually adjusted around that one basic sound. So thus allophones are the modifications that result when a particular phoneme occurs or occurs say between vowels or at the beginning of a syllable or when stressed or whatever. So these can be some of the different environments. A phoneme can sound differently at the beginning of a word, at the end of a word, between the vowels, or when it is stressed or unstressed. So a phoneme can sound differently in different environments. Okay, so that was all about complementary distribution. Here are two more terms that we need to remember. Underlying sound is sometimes used for phoneme, and surface forms, the word or the term surface forms is used for allophones. These terms are actually borrowed from syntax, where we study or where we talk about underlying forms or surface forms. If you remember Chomsky, he introduced these terms. So now we will move on. There is another activity. Here I am going to read it again, read the instructions. In French, the following pairs of sounds are in complementary distribution. Now m and this small circle beneath m is actually showing that this is devoiced. Here it has lost its voicing. These are in complementary distribution, l and r, and so these are in complementary distribution. Study the data below and identify the phonetic context in which the voiced and voiceless member of each pair occurs. State the rule that governs the distribution of each sound. So look at it for a while and then I'll explain it to you. Okay, now we are going to see how these how these sounds are in complementary distribution to each other. We will look at the instances of r. Now where r is devoiced, where r has lost its voicing, and where it is still voiced. Now look at these examples where, now this one where the meaning is to put like if I try to pronounce it, it will be like mutter or mutter. So now you can see here that before r we have this t sound. We have this t sound. This small symbol is for dental sound. So this is a voiceless sound. A voiceless sound is actually making r to lose its voicing as well. We can observe another example. So this example is also uh, uh, where r is losing its voicing. It's becoming devoiced, but here here again it is preceded by t. We will look at another different example. See here, fiffer, or sorry, it's shiffer. Now in shiffer you can again see that f is a voiceless sound, which is affecting its following sound r and making it devoiced, making it lose its voicing. So now it means that voiceless sounds will affect their preceding or their following sounds. They are going to affect them. So it means actually that the surrounding environment affects the pronunciation of the sounds. Okay, so now we looked at the examples of these two sounds r. You have to look at the examples of these two other pairs, ma and la. Okay, now we'll move on to the next topic. This is, there are some examples of complementary distribution from Urdu. Now you can notice the sound of ma at initial and final position of for example, when you say mom and initial position, at initial position it is pronounced quite clearly, and at the final position it is pronounced like it is quite dark. So you can take the example of English clear and dark la. So it's the same way, it is pronounced differently. Now again you can take this example, take the example of ma and ma in com and ma in mal. Are these in contrastive distribution or complementary distribution? Of course in complementary distribution, because in contrastive distribution their other phonemes should exactly be the same. Okay, now some more examples of complementary distribution, like thali and saat. When we are pronouncing this word saat, we generally this word generally loses its aspiration and or loses its release, and it is having the aspiration here in the beginning. Now this one kam and vukla. Now k has quite a different pronunciation in vukla and clear pronunciation in kam. Fard and rasta. Notice the pronunciation of r sound in these words. Okay, so we looked at some of the sounds which are in complementary distribution to each other. Now we will now you should try to bring out some more examples of complementary distribution from Urdu and Punjabi language. So now we will move on. It is just a sort of recapitulation that allophones occur in complementary distribution, whereas phonemes occur in contrastive distribution. Now we are going to move towards the last topic of our today's lecture, that is phonemic inventory of Urdu language, and then we will see phonemic inventory of Punjabi language. Now phonology of a language is the inventory of its phonemes, the sum of all those sounds that show distinctive nature. The phonemic inventory of Urdu. In Urdu we have 44 consonantal sounds and 23 vocalic sounds, 23 vowels, and we have 11 diphthongs as well. Sorry, this figure, this further distribution is slightly wrong. So we will see that there are in fact actually 23 vowel sounds in Urdu and 44 consonantal sounds. We will see this distribution in the next slides. Okay, now here are Urdu phonemes. So I will move to the previous slide once again. What is phonemic inventory? Phonemic inventory, we say that phonology of a language is the inventory of its phonemes. So the words or the unique sounds in a language will be known as its phonemic inventory. So in English, we have it, English IPA. We have 44 phonemes in English. That is phonemic inventory of English. In Urdu, we have more than 67 sounds. We have 70 plus sounds. So this is phonemic inventory of Urdu. So now let's look at phonemic inventory here. Now first, in the first column you will see the letters and then in the second column you can see IPA symbols, the symbols like we have in English. In this third column you can see words, and in this last column you can see some of the you can see the transcription. So it's your language, you can read all of these quickly. We will look at some of the different sounds which are not present in English, like bh. Bh is also not present in English. It's Bh is there in English, p is not in English. So English speakers generally say park or pat. They don't say park or pat. So we have p as a different phoneme in Urdu, this first one, and then we have this fourth phoneme is different, bh as in bhool. In English we don't have any this bh sound, and we have b but we don't have bh. Then in Urdu we have this mah sound as in kumhar. Then in English we don't have th as in thali, it is also unique to Urdu. Then th as in dhool, it is also unique. Then th as in thela, and then dh as in dhakkan, and nah as in mun, and then so kh is there in English, and then so like this sound like sunk and sing, these are not there in English. This k, it is a uvular k as in kenchi. It's normally we don't pronounce it. So normal speakers of Urdu, so if somebody is quite a good speaker of Urdu, he or she might be able to pronounce it correctly. Then this R sound, a glottal stop, maloom, and then this r sound, these two sounds are not there in English. This j sound is there in English, like we have in pleasure or treasure. So jalabari, we also have it here. Now this last sound, this l sound as in dulhan, and then next one, here there are this r sound like sarhana we say, so we get an aspirated r sound. R is not in English as in aru, r is not in English as in bar. So we have so many different sounds in Urdu. You see, Urdu is it's quite a rich language, and it's actually difficult to learn Urdu language than learning English language. Now you see, we don't have this jh in English as we have jharu in Urdu. Okay. Okay, sorry for the pause. Now we will move on. Vowels. Now here are the vowel sounds of Urdu. So you can see here again in the first column the letter is written, here the examples are written, and here the again here is the transcription. Now we have this oo sound as in kudna, the long oo sound. We have this you as in you. Now Urdu is unique or different from English in a way that in English we don't have nasal consonants. Nasal consonants in English can only be the allophones. They can only occur in different phonetic environments. But in Urdu we have nasal vowels as different phonemes. In English, we will only have nasal consonants as different allophones. So now you see there the third one, hona, as in bona, or o as in bona, and o as in sano. Now you can clearly see that these are pronounced from the nasal tract. Then o as in poda, then o as in londi. So this is again nasalized. So look at all of these, you can pronounce better than me. Dena and I both are same, just the difference is nasality. This one is nasal and this one is oral. Now this is a sound as in Sahara, and this one is a sound as in Sheher, and this is o as in the first letter of Ohda. And so here is this, I'm moving forward quickly. This is E as in Gindora, and as in Kuwara, and as in Bhawer. So we have so many nasal vowels in Urdu, which is making Urdu vowel phonemic inventory longer. And now there are diphthongs. There are 11 diphthongs in Urdu. So here are the letters and here are the words. I as in gai. Now in English, when we were discussing English diphthongs, I said that in diphthongs we do not stress the second sound in English, but here we do. Like you cannot say gai. It will be actually in Urdu we are actually having the second sound here can be a long vowel as well. In English it was only a short vowel. You can see that with the exception of only one or two sounds, all of these diphthongs in Urdu are having length markers, having these dots at the end. So in Urdu there are quite many diphthongs which are ending in long vowels. So now I as in gai, I as in gai, I. Now you can read the words, and you as in kyun. Now you see we have nasal diphthongs as well, and there must be another diphthong which I cannot see here, and it should be included. It is I as in I. So for example, I come. So this should also be included here. So you can do a research. I have taken this from the website of Center for Language Engineering, so might be this was missed. So okay, now here is some practice. Transcribe the following Urdu words. You have to transcribe these words. You can go back to the charts and you can you can go back to the charts and you can try to transcribe these words. Transcribing these words will help you to remember phonemic inventory of Urdu. Now I'll quickly move towards phonemic inventory of Punjabi language. In Punjabi language we have 31 consonants and 10 vowels, and now this is a very old data. I have taken this from a chapter written by Christopher. I have given the full name in the end in the references. Now because there isn't much research available on Punjabi language, this is why I have taken data from an article which was available. Now there are 10 vowels in Punjabi and 31 consonants. We will see what they are. Now vowels, vowel contrast, they have been given here in contrast. So now it's like mel and mal. You can see the English translations are given here. Then mil and mil, as in or mile, and then mul and mul. So these are actually pronounced differently, and then you can see here it's male and mal, and it's mole and it's molly. So it means these are, so there are these 10 vowels in Punjabi. Now here are nasal vowels in English. These oral vowels have their nasal contrasts as well. Like this is paya, as if we are saying oh brother, and there is paya, as if we are saying paya, that you are showing possession, brothers. Then there is this lai, for example, kursi lai, and and there is this lai, you are ordering somebody, kursi lai, this will be an order sort of. Then these are actually their nasal variations. Like it is pau and it is pound, like I'll put, and then so these are different. You can try to read them through their symbols, I hope. Now we'll move on. There are these contrastive variations. I think I have pasted them again. Yes, it is pasted again. Now there is diphthongs in here are these diphthongs in Punjabi, and like air as in gear, like he went, eo as in pio, as in father, or it's eo as in leona, for example, to bring, and then it's I as in gai, and I as in gai, and so this is shua, because it has been taken from a very old book. The symbols are not correctly written. This particular sound, this one here as well, these are shua. So now look at this last D symbol, it's ua, as in guacha, lost. Okay. Now Punjabi consonants. There are 31 Punjabi consonants, as I said, and you can see here that these are stops, and stops here. So you can see here their manners, and you can see their places of articulation over here. This is kha, this is tha, this is cha. So it's taken from an old book, and at that time cha was written like this with this symbol. So nowadays, according to a recent research by Nayyara Karamat, this symbol is also written like cha in English. Okay, now you can go to IPA audio sounds of Wikipedia, and you can listen to the recordings of all the sounds. All these sounds are available over there. I'll also try in my some next lecture to record those sounds over here, to bring those recordings in my slides. Now here are the contrasts of Punjabi consonants. So now look at this, they are retroflex versus dental. Like look at it, it is uni and uni. Now these two na sounds are pronounced differently. Like when we say uni, which means not full, and uni, which means actually woolen. And then there are these sounds. So it is like nari, or it's like nari. So now these are this one is like more, and this is more, like peacock. So now these are actually these contrasts or minimal pairs are given to show that these two are different sounds in Punjabi language. Now, retroflex contrasts, you can see d and r here, like sardi and sari, and then goda and gola, and kodi and koli. So now you can see that these are actually different sounds pronounced differently in Punjabi. Now, remembering remembering this whole phonemic inventory at once is not definitely an easy task. You will have to try to remember these symbols. You will obviously have to practice a lot. So I recommend you to at least practice 10 words, at least 10 words from Urdu and at least 10 words for Punjabi. Think of any random words in Urdu and any random words in Punjabi and try to transcribe them. So here are the references. So the topic of complementary distribution and minimal pairs was taken from the book of Katamba, and the topic of again the topic of contrastive distribution, complementary distribution. So this book was also consulted for this topic. Activities were particularly taken from this book, An Introduction to Phonology, and Punjabi in phonemic inventory was taken from this article, Christopher Shackle, chapter by Christopher Shackle in the book of Indo-Aryan Languages, and Urdu phonemic inventory was taken from this source. And thank you very much. I hope you guys would have understood it. If you don't understand anything, you are welcome to ask. Thank you very much.